chatting.
Hello and welcome to the newsroom. Breaking this hour, Russian President Vladimir Putin is in New Delhi for a two-day state visit where he holds talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The visit marks the 23rd India-Russia annual summit and comes amid efforts to strengthen bilateral trade ties, particularly in defense, energy, technology, and high-value sectors. The leaders reaffirmed their commitment to the special and privileged strategic partnership celebrating 25 years of strategic ties. They have emphasized mutual trust, respect for core national interests, and strategic convergence as the foundation of this long-standing relationship. During the summit, both sides signed agreements covering temporary labor activity, cooperation against irregular migration, healthcare, medical, education, food safety, maritime training, fertilizers, customs, postal services, as well as economic exchanges. At the India-Russia Business Forum, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted India's emergence as a global hub of skill, talent, and innovation. On the other hand, Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed Russia's commitment to deepen economic ties and increase purchases from India. The summit underscores India and Russia's shared vision for sustainable economic growth and global stability. Now joining me for this discussion is my colleague Meher Khurana. Meher, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, yes, Asma, all eyes were on New Delhi today as the 23rd India-Russia Forum has just concluded today. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin is currently on his two-day state visit to India, where today he met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Hyderabad House. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called India's friendship with Russia steadfast like a pole star. Now, the main result of this meeting between Putin and Modi is the major economic push between both the countries. Now, adoption of the economic cooperation program is set until 2030, where both the countries are aiming to boost bilateral trade at the annual bilateral trade by $100 billion by 2030's end. Now, over 10 agreements were signed between both the nations, which include food security, bilateral trade, technology, tourism, as well as labor mobility. Now, Putin has also given a firm public stance on oil. He said that there will be unlimited and uninterrupted fuel shipments to India. Now, it's important to note that this comes amid US President Donald Trump's push towards India for not buying Russian oil, as according to him, it is fueling the war in Ukraine. Now, on Ukraine, Putin has also thanked the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his diplomatic push towards peace and his constructive role towards ending the war in Ukraine. Now, defense was also a major discussion point in this bilateral meeting between the two sides. Now, S-400 was also a part of the discussions, and Putin has reaffirmed that there will be timely delivery of the S-400 missile systems, and it's also important to note that this delivery of the S-400 was interrupted due to the war in Ukraine. Now, both nations have also reaffirmed their global stance towards the SCO summit, the G20, as well as the BRICS summit. Now, it's important to note that tourism was also a discussion there, and India has said that it will soon adopt the 30-day e-visas for all Russian citizens, and we are looking towards the implementation of this in the near future, and the ministers are working towards implementing this tourism pact. Now, this meeting was highly important because this is Putin's first state visit to India since 2021, and it's his first meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi since the Ukraine war began. Now, today's meeting shows the friendship between both the nations, and it's very important for both Russia as well as India. Over to you, Asima.
With that, I would like to thank Meher for sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to France. French President Emmanuel Macron has issued a stark warning about the escalating rivalry between the United States and China, urging the world to be cautious of its potential to reshape global dynamics and divide continents. Speaking at Sichuan University in Chengdu on the final day of his visit to China, Macron has expressed concerns over the growing tension between the two superpowers, emphasizing the risk it poses to the international cooperation and unity. He has highlighted the negative impact of this rivalry that could have on global stability, stressing that a more fragmented world could emerge as a result. In his remarks, Macron also criticized efforts to move away from a cooperative multilateral approach to global affairs, calling it a fundamental mistake. He has advocated for continued collaboration and engagement across nations, warning that isolationism and division would undermine long-term peace and prosperity. Macron's speech underscores the French leader's commitment to advocating for diplomacy and unity amid increasing global tensions, especially as the US-China relationship remains a key issue in geopolitics. His comments come at a time when the international community is grappling with shifting power dynamics as both the US and China pursue rival strategies on the global stage. Macron's stance adds to growing calls for dialogue, balance, and multilateralism. As a countermeasure to rising global polarization, let's listen in.
Un moment, et c'est vos générations qui vont l'affronter, d'extrême complexité et de transformation comme on en a peu vécu. D'abord, on a des déstabilisations géopolitiques et un niveau de tension très fort. Vous le voyez, et vous entendez parler sans doute chaque jour de la guerre lancée par la Russie en Ukraine qui touche directement l'Europe. On voit les tensions dans la région qui sont aussi fortes. On voit la rivalité qui existe entre les États-Unis et la Chine, qui va quand même structurer beaucoup de choses. Et tout ça pourrait, en quelque sorte, séparer les continents. On est à un moment de rupture un peu de notre ordre international. Et le monde qu'on avait construit après la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, qui reposait sur ce qu'on appelle le multilatéralisme, et donc de la coopération entre les puissances, il est en train de se fissurer, de se fracturer, pour ne pas dire qu'il est déjà en train de se refragmenter. C'est ça ce qui est à l'œuvre. Et ce que certains veulent installer à travers leur discours. Et c'est de passer au fond d'un monde multilatéral à un monde multipolaire, avec quelques puissances qui structurent le monde et des vassaux, si je puis dire, mais qui ne travaillent plus ensemble. Et je pense que ça, c'est une erreur fondamentale. Ne cédez pas aux sirènes de la division. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui vont vous expliquer que l'Europe est vieille, que l'Europe ou que les pays les plus riches, ceux qu'on trouve au G7, sont arrogants, déjà riches, qu'il y a un Nord qui méprise un Sud global. Tout ça sont des récits, des inventions. On a fait progresser toute notre planète, de la Chine à la France, à chaque fois qu'on a su coopérer dans le respect réciproque, dans la considération. Moi, je ne crois pas à toutes ces théories. Nous partageons la même planète quand on parle de climat. On partage le même monde.
Now we move on. The European Commission has fined Elon Musk's platform X 120 million euros for violating key transparency rules under the Digital Services Act, marking the EU's first major non-compliance ruling against the company since Musk's takeover. After 2 years' investigation, regulators concluded X misled users through its deceptive blue tick verification system, failed to provide a public and searchable list of adversaries, and blocked data and access to data needed by researchers monitoring political content, disinformation, and online harms. The fine includes 45 million euros for the blue tick system, 35 million euros for advertising transparency breaches, and 40 million euros for denying researcher access. Before Musk's ownership, blue ticks verified identity. Under X Premium, anyone who pays can obtain one, making authenticity unclear during an election season. The ruling comes amid rising trade tensions between the EU and the Trump administration, with US officials pressuring Europe to relax tech regulations. Brussels has dismissed political pressure, insisting it retains its sovereign right to regulate digital platforms. Musk now has 90 days to submit an action plan and may appeal the decision in the EU courts. Meanwhile, the EU said TikTok has agreed to comply with advertising transparency rules after its own warnings this year. Let's listen in.
The Commission has issued a fine of €120 million to X for breaching the Digital Services Act. This is the first ever fine under the DSA. X has indeed breached its transparency obligation under the DSA. This includes X's blue checkmark. It deceives users. Anyone can pay to obtain the verified status, and X does not meaningfully verify who is behind it. It also includes X advertising repository, which does not work properly, and X doesn't provide effective data access for researchers.
Spain leaders in Madrid have expressed their support for the decision of their public television to withdraw Spain from Eurovision as a protest against the continued participation of Israel. However, Spain's broadcaster RTVE has said that denial of a secret ballot over Israel's participation in Eurovision increases the distrust of the festival's organization. Meanwhile, some people have responded. Let's listen into what they have shared.
Hayan manifestado su decisión de abandonar el certamen de Eurovisión 4 me parece bastante poco y lo veo poco lógico, ¿no? Porque yo creo que es patente la situación que se está viviendo en Palestina, lo que está haciendo Israel, y que no tomen más países esta decisión me parece ilógico.
Que considero que tengo una posición neutra, no veo del todo mal, a pesar de que sí puede doler no participar un año, no veo del todo mal no formar parte como método de protesta. A veces hay que hacer unos sacrificios para realmente poder hacer ruido.
Now we move on to India. India's aviation system has descended into chaos as Indigo cancelled over 400 flights on December 5th, triggering nationwide disruption across major airports including Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Goa and Raipur. Passengers have faced delays of more than 12 hours, missing baggage, suspended terminal entry in some airports, and widespread protests. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has ordered a high-level 4-member inquiry committee to investigate the root causes of the collapse, from pilot rostering failures to manpower shortages and compliance gaps with new flight duty. The time limitations, the committee must report within 15 days. In an unprecedented move, the DGCA has temporarily lifted night duty limits and placed FDTL orders in abeyance, allowing Indigo flexibility to deploy pilots amid shortages. Delhi Airport has halted all Indigo departures until midnight. Mumbai has reported more than 50% cancellations, and Goa flights were cancelled across major Gujarat airports. Goa saw severe tourism impact, and railways added extra coaches on the Jammu-Delhi Rajdhani to assist stranded travelers. Now we move on to our next news. Taiwan's Premier Cho Chung-tai has said that he's very moved by recent comments from Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, remarks that have pushed China and Japan into their most serious diplomatic clash in years. Takaichi has told Parliament last month that a hypothetical Chinese attack on Taiwan could draw military response from Tokyo, a statement that triggered sharp condemnation from Beijing. Meeting today with Shuzo Sumi, the head of the Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association, Premier Cho expressed gratitude for Japan's support and noted that in the face of rising pressure from China, many Taiwanese are now choosing Japan as their preferred travel destination. Cho also extended an invitation to Japanese performers and pop idols, some of whom have recently been blocked from appearing in China, to come to Taiwan, saying that they would be warmly welcomed. China maintains that Taiwan is part of its territory and has not ruled out the use of force, a claim that the Taiwanese government firmly rejects. Let's listen in.
世首相对台海地区稳定和平的一席谈话，我们都非常的感动。这代表一种正义跟和平，也对高市首相跟日本的政府跟国人能够在这种高压抗压底下继续坚持这种正义跟和平，我们表示非常的感谢。
Now moving on, devastating landslides in Sri Lanka's central province of Kandy has turned the village into a burial site with dozens buried alive. According to the Sri Lankan authorities, they have reported that 6 houses were completely destroyed by the landslide, as some victims are yet to be recovered and 481 people have been killed due to heavy rains triggered by Cyclone Ditwa. Meanwhile, some locals have responded. Let's listen into what they have shared.
මෙච්චර කාලයකදී මේ වගේ වතුරක් ආවේ නැහැ. මේ වතුර එන ප්‍රමාණය අපි දන්නා. ඒ ප්‍රමාණයෙන් තමයි ඉතින් අපි ගෙවල් දොරවල් හදලා මේවා කරගෙන තිබ්බේ. ඊට ඉස්සරහත් ගන්න පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳන්ම මේ ප්‍රමාණයට වතුර ආවේ නැහැ. මේ අවුරුදු 70ට මම දන්න ප්‍රමාණයට මේ වගේ විශාල වතුරක් ආවේ නැහැ. මේ වගේ හානි වුණෙත් නැහැ.
සම්පූර්ණ හානිය තියෙනවා ගෙවල් 6කට ඒකෙන් මේ බේරන්ට ඇවිල්ලා 13 දෙනෙක්ට ඉහළ ප්‍රමාණයක් අපි දල වශයෙන් කිව්වොත් බේරන්ට ආපු කට්ටිය 13 දෙනෙක්ට ඉහළ ප්‍රමාණයක් නැති වුණා. මෙතන මේ පදිංචිකරු හිටියට 15කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක්ම නැති වුණා.
මේක එතකොට මේ නාය ගිහිල්ලා පල්ලා එක ගෙදරක නාය ගියා. ගියාට පස්සේ අපේ නංගි මසිනයි උදව් කරන්න ගියා. උදව් කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා ඒ කට්ටිය සාමාන්‍ය ටික දෙනෙක්ව බේරගලා පල්ලා ගෙදරක හිටියා. පල්ලා ගෙදර ඉන්නකොට උඩ කෑල්ල අනිත් පැත්තෙත් කඩාගෙන ආවිල්ලා ඔක්කොම ටික
Now we move the focus to Germany. Germany has pushed back after the Trump administration released a sweeping new U.S. national security strategy that sharply criticized European allies. German Foreign Minister John Wadephil has said that Berlin does not need outside advice, especially on issues such as freedom of expression and how its democratic society is organized. The U.S. strategy document lays out President Donald Trump's America First worldview and marks a major shift from past U.S. policy. While still naming China as a key competitor, it devotes more focus to challenging European Union-led values, particularly on immigration. Breaking with decades of global dominance rhetoric, the strategy rejects the idea of a United States seeking world supremacy. It says the U.S. will prevent hostile powers from dominating key regions but will not waste blood and treasure to counter every major power. The paper also calls for shifting U.S. military resources away from regions deemed less critical and towards threats in the Western Hemisphere. Let's listen in.
Sind und bleiben unser wichtigster Verbündeter im Bündnis. Dieses Bündnis ist allerdings darauf konzentriert, verteidigungspolitische, sicherheitspolitische Fragen zu adressieren. Es ist natürlich auch ein Wertebündnis und deswegen kann man auch andere Fragen diskutieren. Aber ich glaube, Fragen der Meinungsäußerungsfreiheit oder der Organisation unserer freiheitlichen Gesellschaften hier jedenfalls in der Bundesrepublik Deutschland gehören nicht dazu. Wir glauben auch nicht, dass irgendjemand uns dazu Ratschläge geben muss, sondern das wird durch unsere Verfassungsordnung organisiert.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin is responsible for the 2018 Novichok attack in Salisbury, UK, citing a recent public inquiry. The inquiry concluded that the poisoning of former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal by GRU operatives was ordered by President Putin, resulting in the death of innocent bystander Don Sturgis. In response, the UK has imposed new sanctions on Russia, including targeting the GRU military intelligence agency. Let's listen into what President Keir Starmer has shared.
Moral responsibility lies with Putin, and it's further evidence of the shocking and reckless hostile activity on UK soil. And so it's very important that we put in the most stringent sanctions on the GRU for the first time, but it also reinforces why we need to remain vigilant to the ever-present threat that is there from Putin and from Russia. And this is hostile activity on our soil. We have to be in a position to respond to that. We have responded with sanctions. First time we've done sanctions like this at this scale on the GRU. Right thing to do, and we'll remain ever vigilant.
However, Russia has denied involvement in the attack and dismissed the sanctions, with Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova warning of potential retaliatory measures. Now we move on. The U.S. military says it has killed 4 men in a strike on a suspected drug vessel in international waters of the Eastern Pacific. Officials say intelligence confirmed the vessel was carrying illicit narcotics and moving along known narco trafficking route. The operation comes as the U.S. steps up efforts to disrupt drug shipments from Latin America to the United States. No further details on the type of narcotics or the vessel's origins have been released. The military says that it's coordinating with regional partners to prevent further trafficking in the area. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has joined the leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo in Washington to sign a peace deal aimed at ending one of Africa's longest conflicts. The signing came even as fresh fighting continues on the ground, raising questions about the accord's effectiveness. After the ceremony, Trump has said that he feels it's going to be a great miracle. He has made these comments alongside Rwandan President Paul Kagame and Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi. Both the leaders welcomed the peace deal. Let's listen in.
I think you're going to see very quickly, I think you're going to see things happen. This is something that was not doable, according to a lot of people, and not only is it doable, I think it's going to be a great miracle. These two gentlemen are leaders, they're great leaders, and they're going to prove that in the coming months and years. And I think you're going to see very immediate results. I have confidence that that's what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
As we celebrate progress in the DRC, we must not look away from other crises. I want to ask you respectfully, Mr. President, that in your quest for global peace, to support efforts to resolve the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan. I thank you.
It's up to us in Africa, working with our partners to consolidate and expand this peace. There will be ups and downs on the road ahead. There is no doubt about it. Rwanda, I know, will not be found wanting. I can assure you of that.
Now we're moving on. FIFA will introduce a new annual award, FIFA Peace Prize. Football unites the world, with U.S. President Donald Trump among the contenders during the 2026 World Cup draw in Washington, D.C. The governing body of football has said that the award was established to reward for individuals who have taken exceptional and extraordinary actions for peace. Trump has announced in August that the World Cup draw will take place during the draw at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performance Arts, where the 48 teams competing in the tournament will learn their group stage opponents. Let's listen into what Trump has shared.
Well, I just think that President Moon was very nice when he suggested it. I want to get peace. The main thing, we want to get peace. That was a big problem, and I think it's going to work out well. We'll see. We're setting up meetings right now, and I think it's probably going to be announced over the next couple of days, location and date. But I thought it was very generous of President Moon of South Korea to make that statement, and I appreciate it. But the main thing is to get it.
Now moving on, the United Nations has warned that Tanzania is intensifying its crackdown on opponents following October's contested elections, which sparked deadly violence in UN human rights spokesman Saif Magango, and said that hundreds were killed and more than 2,000 detained after post-election protests. Magango has urged the Tanzanian government to ensure security forces respected the citizens' fundamental rights and called for the lifting of a nationwide ban on Independence Day protests imposed on December 3rd. He has warned that the lack of transparent information could further erode public trust and heighten tensions. The UN has also demanded the immediate and unconditional release of all arbitrarily detained individuals, emphasizing the need to protect human rights during the critical period. Let's listen into what the United Nations human rights spokesperson has shared.
Reports indicate that hundreds of people were killed and over 2,000 detained by security forces when protests broke out following the 29 October general election. We urge the government to instruct the security forces to plan and implement their operations in a manner that allows Tanzanians to fully exercise their fundamental rights. And on the 3rd of December, police issued a blanket nationwide ban on all Independence Day protests. We call on the government to lift this overbroad, disproportionate step. This continued absence of transparent information risks further eroding public trust and heightening tensions at a critical moment. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all those arbitrarily detained.
With that, it's a wrap on the newsroom. Keep watching for more news updates.
Thank you.